Thank you for joining us at One Church. If you'd like to know more about us, you can simply visit our website, onechurchjoplin.org. We would like to stay connected with you throughout the week wherever you go, and the simplest way for you to do that is to like our Facebook page, where we post all of our content. And you can always come visit us Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. or 11 a.m. I believe that you're here for a reason, and God has something He wants to say specifically to you. And my hope for you is that by the end of this video, you feel closer to God than you ever have before.
Hello, my name is Lewis, and I love Christmas. I love everything about it. The snow, the lights. I'm sorry. But most of all, I love the reason for the season. That's why this year, as a Christian, I got so tired of hearing that disrespectful phrase. You know the one. Happy holidays. Every time somebody'd say it to me, I would give them a good old Merry Christmas right in their face. Booyah for the Messiah!
Stop getting riled up. You're gonna hurt yourself.
Mom! I'm trying to talk here!
Whatever. I'm calling Dr. Goldstein.
Sorry. I had to move back in with my mother after all this.
Tell the truth, sweetie.
Fine. I've always lived with my mother.
Against my better judgment.
Mom! Mom! Can I just tell my story? So recently, I went to the supermarket to pick up some eggnog. As I walked in, the guy standing next to the grocery carts throws a big, "Happy holidays, mister," right in my face like it's no big deal. But guess what?
What, honey?
It was a rhetorical question, Mom. I am building the drama of the story.
Always so dramatic.
What? Oh, I'm the dramatic one? Oh, really? Anyway, the kid, this Happy Holidays punk, just got me riled up. So I grab the nog and I go to pay. The clerk rings me up, and what does she say? Happy Holidays. I was enraged. I was in a blind fury. I jump up on the counter, I grab the microphone, and I yell into it. It's not a holiday, people! It's Christmas! I'm mad as heck, and I'm not gonna take it anymore! Unfortunately, my foot slipped, triggering the conveyor belt. Now, bread and milk doesn't seem to be moving too fast, but a 175-pound man flies off that belt. And fly I did. Not like a majestic eagle or Superman. I flew like a partridge falling out of a pear tree. I flew into a display of Chia Pet nativity sets. Thus, my current condition. And then something funny happened. A gift arrived for me. Mom, little help, please? No, not that one. No. No, to your left. Your left! No, the one that arrived! That's the one. Thank you.
You watch your tongue with me, mister.
Huh? It was from Elizabeth. The girl whose checkout stand I'd commandeered. She'd given me a gift. At first, it didn't make sense. I didn't deserve anything good from her. Not the way I'd acted. I'd acted like a maniac. But then I got to thinking. I had been bound up in religion. And I didn't want to be bound up anymore. Religion is always having to be right. Grace, that's being right with others, being right with God. So this gift, I don't know what's in it. It could be more eggnog. It could be a Chia Pet nativity set. Doesn't matter. The real gift is better than either of those things.
Oh, you two are destined for wedlock!
Mom! Why did you do that? Why do you always go there? We're not going to get married!
It's a match made
I don't even
woman.
know her!
But you said she
It
was...
doesn't matter if I said she was cute!
It's Christmas season and we're happy to be here. How many of you are struggling to get into the Christmas season this year? The fact that it's 80 degrees doesn't help, but I'm glad to be here. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. Ever heard that saying? What's that from? Christmas Carol. Who said it? Scrooge. Yes, Charles Dickens' Scrooge. Scrooge set a precedent. Anger at the holidays. Shaking a fist, if you will, at scoffers and those that would celebrate it. Anybody ever here seen that movie? If you go to Silver City right now, they have a great Christmas Carol play that I would encourage you to see. But I have a curiosity of what's really in the package for Jimmy there. I also want to know how he feeds himself when his mom's not around. Anyway, for Jimmy, the gift came in the giving. Some may say that he got what he deserved. You know, he commandeered the lady's checkout counter. He took her microphone. I'm sure he scared children. But through that, he received a gift that he didn't deserve. He was rude, he was obnoxious, and he had a painful response. I can only imagine what his mom is really like. But he got a gift that he didn't deserve, a gift of grace that so often people don't deserve, and people become so rudely offended. Have you ever caught yourself in one of those situations where you're like, I'm not shopping or I'm boycotting a store because they say happy holidays, Target. And it's so funny in public, women are so like, I'm not going to that store, but then they have a sale, Black Friday. Oh, it's Target now. Okay, I get it. But regardless, Jimmy, he entered that store with pride, and he exited with more than humility. He exited with wounds, if you should say. He got what he didn't deserve, a Christmas gift from someone that decided to show him this thing called grace. And grace is when we get something that we don't deserve. Grace is when we get something that we don't deserve, or we don't get something that we do deserve. Have you ever been pulled over for a speeding and you get away with it? Maybe you realize you know exactly how fast you were going and you get away with it. I see some people like looking at their significant others. I never get away. I don't know if it's my size. I don't know if it's because I'm a man. I don't know if it's because my attitude. I don't know what it's for, but I don't ever get away with it. You know who always gets away with it? Julie. She doesn't really get pulled over, though, because my wife is what you'd call a rule follower. But sometimes you get that unexpected gift of grace, and that cop lets you go. Or sometimes you get this gift like here, like Jimmy, when you're in a coffee shop and you're acting like a moron and you're saying, how much longer is this going to take? And you're frustrated by the line, then you get up there and you order your double soy latte, 182 degrees or whatever it is, and then you go to pay for it and you find out that the person in front of you paid for your coffee. And all of a sudden you have this gift of grace that you absolutely did not deserve. And then you're left standing there feeling foolish because it puts things into perspective. How often do we extend the gift of grace? You see, we love to receive the gift of grace, and we're often in need of it, but how often are we so willing to extend this gift of grace? And I think that there could be a few reasons why we struggle with giving this gift of grace. Although Jesus is certainly the reason for the season, somewhere along the line, Jimmy unfortunately became bound up in his religion. He became bound up in his religious quest to right the world and end the happy holidays pursuit and make sure people said Merry Christmas. But you see, grace is about this, not just being right. I've got 3 daughters, and I cannot tell you how many times I say over and over and over again, you don't have to be right. Anybody ever said that to your kids? It's so easy to say it to our kids, but are we willing to apply that to our own lives? I'll look at Libby and Bella. It's those two all the time. And it's usually Bella with one of the other two. But all the time I'll look at them and I'll go, great, you were right. And now she's crying. Did you win? Bella will usually say, yeah. But grace is about not just being right, but being right with others, being right with God. And this is a season we have the opportunity to share that grace. See, Jimmy and those who find themselves in the Happy Holidays versus Merry Christmas verbal war during the holidays will be trying to love God by somehow trying to defend God. Well, here's the truth, is that God doesn't need us to defend him. The best thing that we could just do is live for him and love like him. Because that's one thing Jesus didn't necessarily go around doing, was telling people that he was right and they were wrong. He proved it through his actions. He did it through his life. He did it in the way that he loved. Now, he always so good at sharing his answers with a story, but he didn't have to tell people anything. His life showed his truth. So we have these soldiers at Christmas time that fight and have this lack of sense or desire to show that they truly love others. And they demonstrate this clumsy kind of love that ends up causing offense to others. But here's the truth. There's a real lack of love and mutual respect when people feel first a response of love. There's something about how people, you ever heard the term, people don't care what you know until they know that you care? You ever heard that before? It's the same thing with our religion. It's the same thing with our Christianity. It's the same thing with our faith. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. So in this pursuit that we see with Jimmy with the woman in the store, Lewis, or Jimmy as we call him, demonstrated this kind of love. He needed to be right rather than be right with his neighbor. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. You see, there was something about the nativity that first night. There was something there. There were shepherds with kings that night. Shepherds with kings. How often do you see that in a daily basis in a situation today where you see royalty with poverty? It's not something you see that often, but there was something that Jesus set a precedent with his entry into the world. And there were the people that were supposed to be at his birth were hand-selected, were picked out for just that purpose. It showed that he came for the rich, but he also came for the poor. He came for the meek. He came for the mighty. And there was a reason that they were there at his birth together as equals, because God so loved the world that he gave his son for all that would worship him. You see, that's what that was. When they came to see Jesus be born, that was their first act of worship. You see, it was obedience. Our obedience is an act of worship. And when they came to see him that night, it was the first act of worship for them. It was the first opportunity that they had to be right with others. So there he was. Jesus was bringing gifts to a family. Jesus bringing gifts to the world. As we consider the arrival of this Christmas season, may we remember that it's all about loving someone. If we love God, but we miss loving our neighbor, we've missed the entire vision. You see, Jimmy was full of pride. He was full of anger. He was full of judgment. He was full of exasperation. He was full of himself. And how often do we get caught up? Maybe for us, it's we're full of our schedule. We're full of our judgment. We're full of our busyness. We're full of the things that frustrate us. We're full of our politics. We're full of just everything. What is it that people get and receive from you? It's funny, I was with some friends and some family last night, and we were just talking about this. How it's very difficult to get together with family through the holidays because there's topics that you just can't talk about. There's things that you just can't say in front of your family. What is it that we share? A person full of grace not only has received a gift, but also becomes a gift to others around them. Is that what your life truly is? Would you say right now, if you stop and reflect and you look at your life, would you say that your life is a gift to others around you? You're like, you know it. I tell my wife all the time, I'm a gift. Sometimes I hijack her Facebook for her and tell her what a gift I am. But the truth is this, a person doesn't earn grace. Grace can only be received. The Apostle Paul talks about this important gift of grace, and he talks about it to the church at Ephesus in Ephesians 2. For by grace you've been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing, it's the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. So in other words, the only way to get saved is by receiving a gift straight from the hand of God. By nothing that we can achieve on our own, by nothing that we can do, but simply being right with Him. Receiving a gift that He gives. And I think somewhere along the line, Jimmy got caught up and he forgot about this gift that he probably received in his life. But how often do we get caught up in this same thing? Are we as willing to share the grace that we so desperately seek with those that are in need of it? And think about that. Think about the honor that we have, the privilege that we have to share grace with somebody. When we truly think about how grace sets us free, do you know what it's truly like? When you're given something that you don't deserve. The gift of salvation, when you really step back, a lot of us struggle with that. It takes a long time for us to accept this gift because we don't feel deserving of it. And that's the truth. You're not deserving of it. I am not deserving of it. And so often that's the struggle. I can't take this gift because I know the truth of what's in here. You see something, but I know the truth of it. I know the way I've talked to people. I know the way that I have loved or not loved people. I know the things that I've thought. I know the things that I've said. I know the things that I've done, that I've looked at, that I've purchased, that I'm not deserving of it. Think about that. But we have the very opportunity to share that same gift that we seek so desperately with others. Grace. And the beautiful thing about sharing grace isn't just receiving it, but giving it. Have you ever forgiven somebody and had that opportunity where they look at you and just say, oh, thank you. Thank you. Have you ever received grace from somebody? You ever had one of those feuds or a battle? Ladies, you're bad about this. Men, we just fight it out and we get over it. Ladies will take it to the grave. I saw the way she looked at my pants. I heard the way she talked about my kid. She was right. He's a jerk. No, I'm kidding. Grace. Grace, God's gift. Just like Jimmy, who was bound up with religion, we get bound up with it. But I love this. Jimmy says, I don't want to be bound up with it anymore. See, religious determination, the need to be right all the time, becomes wearisome, and it causes a person to become bitter, to become angry, to become frustrated, to become full of pride. And that's the part of what Paul is talking about here in Ephesians. A person cannot earn grace by being good enough or working hard enough. It's just not possible. That is the purpose of grace. It's not something we can earn or achieve. It's only something that we can receive. It's a gift we do not deserve, but is available for the taking. See, God's not proud. God's not loud. He's not arrogant, and He's not into people that are like that as well. In fact, what God wants to do is to get into the very hearts of people like that and break them and remake them. And so I would urge you and encourage you in this holiday season, this series that we're in the midst of, it's called The Gifts of Christmas. And we have an opportunity. Last week we talked about the gift of anticipation. And we talked about what it's like to truly anticipate something. There's something about the giving. There's something about the receiving of a gift. There's something about, remember I talked about when we booked that vacation, there's something about the excitement, the buildup, the anticipation. I was so excited. Someone was actually listening to my message last week. And this week, I invited a group of men. And if this is something that's on your heart, you can chat with me. March 2nd through the 9th, we're taking a group of men to Mexico. And we're going to be serving, helping build an orphanage in, help me the city. What's the city? El Higo, Veracruz, Mexico. And we're excited. We're going to go down and we're going to help build on an orphanage there. And you have to, we're making the blocks. You got to truly build your building materials. But we're going down. But one of the reasons I talk about this is because you had this gentleman that I asked to go with us. And it was so neat. When I asked him, his response back to me was, I'm feeling that anticipation that you talked about. That anticipation. I'm anticipating the excitement of going. Something I've wanted to do. And this week we're talking about this gift of grace. This gift of grace. God gives grace to the humble. James 4:6 talks about this. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. In this verse, James is quoting a principle from the Old Testament proverb that has been around for centuries, but it's relevant for the situation that we just saw in this drama this morning. God gives grace to the humble. Would you consider yourself humble? God gives grace to the humble. In fact, it says not only does he give grace to the humble, but he opposes the proud. And if we go on here in Proverbs chapter 3, toward the scorners, God is scornful, but to the humble, he gives grace. So what are you this holiday season? Too often, we see people like Jimmy who just have to be right all the time, and they miss the whole opportunity. You know, when that young man, when he walked into the grocery store, said, Happy Holidays, Jimmy had the opportunity. That's an opening, that's a moment, that's an invitation to share about the hope and love we have at Christmas rather than correcting them, but sharing the hope of Christmas, sharing the hope of Jesus, using all these moments as opportunities. What if we could get to the point where when people thought of the word Christian, it wasn't just, those are the anti-fun people. Those are those people that don't do this. They don't do that. But what if when people heard the word Christian, they really got to the point where it was like, those are the people that love. Those are the people that every time there's a disaster, they're the first ones on the scene. They do more than just say we're sending our hopes and our prayers, but they do it with their hands and their feet and their finances, and they really do what they say that it is that they want to do. Grace. They're the ones that hand out blankets to the cold people downtown. They're the ones that respond to the bedsides when people are in pain. So you see Jimmy, he winds up in this full body cast, restricted, bound up, and he's the very embodiment of what religion can do to us. It can bind us up. It can get us caught up in things that truly don't matter. We have the opportunity to share grace this season. So what is it for you this season that's got you bound up? Is it the weather? Is it just too warm? You can't get in the spirit? Is it the tasks of the holidays? The Christmas cards? I'm tired of sending people Christmas cards that don't send one back. Is it the gift giving? I get it. You look at, you're buying like Modern Warfare saying Merry Christmas. Maybe it's the family time. It's the gathering of people, and they come over to your house, and they eat your food, and they only show up one time a year, and they argue with you about your views. There was a lot of amen in there. Maybe it's church. Maybe the place that's supposed to free us and accept God's love. Maybe it suddenly becomes something that's the most restrictive. You see, we have the opportunity in the walls of the church to share grace. Believe it or not, there are people that sit on this side that have a grudge with someone on this side, and there's people that sit in this front row that have a grudge with someone in the back row, and there's people in the booth that have a grudge with someone in the kids' department. I don't know, I'm just making this up. I'm not pointing somebody out. Calm down, booth, it's all good. But my point in this is that we have the opportunity. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And when we share grace, we have the opportunity to do something in the process. Receive it. When we share grace and we give something away that's not deserved, we get it in return from our Father in heaven. We don't deserve it. We do reserve it. Grace is ours to give as well. Do you have it in you this Christmas season when someone pulls into the perfect parking spot that you've been driving around hours to find? Do you have the ability, do you have it within you to share grace? When you're in the line at Walmart and there's 20 people in front of you and the crazy coupon lady gets out her coupons and she starts couponing, do you have it within you to share grace and look at that moment and go, well, I just have opportunity to talk about Jesus now? The next time the kitchen screws up your order, do you have it within you to share grace? And not demand perfection, and not demand something that you're not willing to give. Can you let it go when the turkey is burned on the outside and pink in the middle? How can we unbind someone else in this holiday season? The prophet Isaiah said this, "No, this is the kind of fast that I want. I want you to remove the sinful chains, to tear away the ropes of the burdensome yoke, to set free the oppressed, and to break every burdensome yoke. I want you to share your food with the hungry and provide shelter for the homeless. Oppressed people, when you see someone naked, clothe him. Don't turn your back on your own flesh and blood. Then your light will shine like the sunrise. Your restoration will quickly arrive. Your godly behavior will go before you, and the Lord's splendor will be your rear guard. Then you will call out and the Lord will respond. You will cry out and he will reply, 'Here I am.' You must remove the burdensome yoke from among you and stop pointing fingers and speaking sinfully. You must actively help the hungry and feed the oppressed. Your light will dispel the darkness, and your darkness will be transformed into noonday, and the Lord will continually lead you. He will feed you even in parched regions. He will give you renewed strength, and you will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring that continually produces water. Your perpetual ruins will be rebuilt. You will reestablish the ancient foundations, and you will be called the one who repairs broken walls, the one who makes the streets inhabitable again." You see, we have an opportunity as ambassadors of heaven to share the love and grace and peace and hope and joy of heaven here on earth. To share the grace that we have within us, to share the goodness that Jesus truly is with others. Have you been freed? Have you received that gift of grace? Do you remember what it was like to be set free? Sometimes I look at Christians and I go, do they even remember the day that they said yes to Jesus? Do they remember that day and what it felt like? Because I'm not seeing it. So in this season, you have the opportunity to share that. Remember what Jimmy said, religion is wanting to be right, but grace is wanting to be right with others and with God. Let's pray.